بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. For today's reminder, I wanted to go into one of the ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is a very noble, prestigious hadith, as all the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ are, but this one is quite full of messages and instructions, and that is the hadith in which he said, "Man nafasa an mu'minin kurbatan min kurab ad-dunya, nafasa Allahu anhu kurbatan min kurab al-akhirah." Whoever relieves a calamity or a hardship from a believer in this life, in the dunya, then Allah will relieve from him a calamity in the day of judgment, in the akhirah. And that is the beginning of the hadith. And the hadith has continuation, which we'll come to inshallah. But you can see very important message and a correlation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam want you to pay attention to. And that is that however you deal with people in this life, you will be dealt similarly in the next life. And that is a part of the recompense. And everybody who believes in Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and by default is going to believe in the Day of Judgment as well, they are going to want to make sure that on the Day of Judgment they have as many tickets that will help them to get through this difficult time. And that's why the hadith goes on, وَمَنْ يَسَّرَ عَلَى مُعْسِرٍ يَسَّرَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ وَمَنْ سَتَرَ مُسْلِمًا فِي الدُّنْيَا سَتَرَهُ اللَّهُ فِي يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَاللَّهُ فِي عَوْنِ الْعَبْدِ مَا كَانَ الْعَبْدُ فِي عَوْنِ أَخِيهِ. So just imagine the realities of the Day of Judgment. The Day of Judgment, such a big, enormous day. It's such a big calamity. To visualize its immensity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has named that day with so many names in the Quran, some of which carry the names of surah, like Al-Qari'ah, which literally means the thumping, or Al-Haqqa, the ultimate truth and reality, Yawm Al-Qiyamah, Yawm Al-Akhir, Yawm Al-Deen, Yawm Al-Hisab, Yawm Al-Hashr, lots of names for this day to show you the immensity of that day. And imagine on that day, you are there and we will all be resurrected, naked, barefooted, with nothing. We have nothing in our possessions, no material wealth, no material gain, because we are absolutely like we go to that day as we were born into the dunya. And so it is definitely a time where you do feel very helpless. You feel lacking in terms of your abilities, in terms of what you have, in terms of your assistance, your help, because you're by yourself now. And then whilst you're like this, some help comes to you. Whilst you're like this, some of the tension that's really grabbing you is relieved. While you're like this and you're feeling exposed, a veil comes to veil you. While you're in need of assistance and help, some help comes to you. And all of this is because you did the same, you treated the same towards the creation of Allah in the Day of Judgment. You saw somebody who had tension and had difficulties, so you relieved their tension. And this hadith shows us the importance of looking out for each other. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a duty, has given us a virtue. You know, He has given some humans more than others. This is the virtue of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He does as He wills, and He is more knowledgeable. We cannot We are in no position, and we don't deserve to question Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But He will ask those who He has given virtue, how did they deal with those others? Did you help them at their times of need? Did you veil them when they needed that veil? Did you run to their assistance when they needed that assistance? And today, subhanAllah, the world is really, as a global community, I think we are a failure. Because with the amount of resources in the world today, with the amount of wealth, with the amount of gain, there shouldn't be anybody who is starving. There shouldn't be anybody who is suffering from famine or drought or curable illnesses or things like that. Child mortality. All of these things, there can be and there should be a help for. And that's why, if we really understood our message as humans, we would have eradicated all of this from the world. You see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they establish these principles as part of your moral compass, that you are always looking out for people and trying to help people, relieving their tensions and to be of help, because you will be treated like that on the Day of Judgment, and you will be given. And what a beautiful hadith is that person, because Allah subhanahu, that hadith, Allah says, the Prophet said, وَمَنْ يَسَّرَ عَلَى مُعْسِرٍ, whoever makes it easy for someone who is finding difficulty to repay back their debt, يَسَّرَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ, Allah will make things easy for them. So imagine that person who, in the hadith, one person who was resurrected and he has no good deeds at all. He's not done any good in his life, except that he used to be someone who was well off, and he used to loan people money. He used to give them money to loan. And whenever the debt was due, he would send his servants to go and collect the debt. And he used to tell them, if that person doesn't have the ability to pay back, then just let him go, pardon him, don't chase him up, don't make it hard. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says on the Day of Judgment, نَحْنُ أَحَقُّ بِالْكَرَمِ مِنْهُ, we are more right, the rightness, or we are more deserving of generosity than this person. تَجَاوَزُ عَنْهُ, we have pardoned him. For his pardoning of those people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pardoned. Even though his hasanat was limited, he didn't used to do much goodness. But you see how he was dealt with in the same way that he used to deal with people, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's generosity is great. You compare that to today, how, and I talk about the global community again, how they exploit the needs of people. Today, the World Banks and the IMF and all that, they don't give people interest-free loans. They don't go out to help people in need. They go and give them money so that they can capture them and almost imprison them in this forever long cycle of debt, so that countries are always in debt and always paying off loans and interest and etc. And that is part of the kind of stinginess and the meanness that the human has, which he has to relieve himself of if he wants to try to succeed. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَقْتَحَمَ الْعَقَبَةِ, had he not overcome the hurdle. And what is that hurdle? Is to help those in need, to feed the people at times of need and times of poverty. And another hadith which really stands strong, and it's a very powerful hadith. That's a hadith in which on the Day of Judgment, again the same scenario we're talking about, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be talking to you directly, and He will say to the slave, He will say, إِسْتَطْعَمْتُكَ فَلَمْ تُطْعِمْنِي, I asked food of you and you didn't feed me. Imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty, the Great, the powerful, the all strong, and He is talking to you and He's saying, I asked you for food but you didn't feed me. So the slave, the human, says, Oh Allah, my Lord, how could I feed you and you are the Lord of the worlds? And then Allah will say, my slave so and so asked you for food but you did not feed him. Had you fed him, you would have found that with me. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will go on to say, I sought water of you, but you never watered me. And the slave will say, my Lord, how would I have watered you? How would I have given you water when you are the Lord of the world? He'll say, my slave so-and-so asked for water, but you didn't give him the water. Had you given him the water, you would have found that with me. And so on. Imagine how great when you are standing with the creation of Allah, the people of Allah, the dependents of Allah, helping them and being and using what Allah has given you to relieve their anxieties, to be of help to them. How great that stands with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why, yes, we have our salah, and we have our fasting, and we have our hajj, and we have our different dhikr and recitation of Quran, but all of those pour into making you a better person to realize your duty in this life. So you imagine that person who didn't do much good, his salah was probably near zero, his hajj, his dhikr, his recitation, all of that was very, very little. But because of his act of goodness towards others, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewarded him and made him enter Al-Jannah. So this hadith, and it's a longer hadith, but I've just used the first part of the hadith. Whoever relieves difficulty from a distress from a person, Allah will relieve from him a distress. And whoever makes it easy for someone who is finding difficult or in bonded in debt, Allah will make it easy for him in this life and the next life. Whoever veils a Muslim, Allah will veil him in the dunya and the akhirah, and Allah will be to the help and the aid of a person as long as a person is in the aid and help of his brother. Jazakumullah khair. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us and you to be of help to His creation and to be of benefit to others. Jazakumullah khair.